did sign up, and they're able to then see the webinar as well and enjoy this presentation. Now, does anybody speak Marine? How to speak Marine? When we speak, how do we speak?
In acronyms.
In grunts. Right. Let's try this all together. I want you everybody to say "oorah."
Hoorah!
No. If you're a Marine and you say "oorah," how do you say "oorah"? Let's go. Let's try it all together. 1, 2, 3. Oorah! There we go. In addition to the "oorah," if I go up to a Marine, I say "er." He'll say "ar." And I know exactly what he said. And he knows exactly what I said. And we say, "Oorah." We move on. Just like that. We always talk like that. So throughout the presentation, if I feel we need a little motivation, I'm going to say, "Let me hear it, Marines." You're going to say, "Hoorah!" Hoorah. Good to go. Very good. Very good. Tonight, we're going to be talking about supplying the line of fire. What I'd like to talk about first is, you see the picture of me. This is me off the coast of Kenya. We just finished up an operation. Now, anybody been to Kenya? Has anybody been to Kenya? Anybody been to Africa or lived on the equator? Been on the equator. When you live on the equator, it is hot. It is hot. It's the most hot I've ever been. And I've been some hot places, and Kenya was really hot. And the purpose of this story is to show us that we need to be clear in our requirements, and that we need to be very good in our planning, or else we get a different result than what we expected. So we were in Kenya, and Marines like ice, and they like their drinks cold. And so we had a request in for an ice maker. And we first got to camp. I really didn't see the ice maker. We didn't see it around. And the logistics officer came by and said, hey John, where's the ice maker? He said, "You see that deep freezer over there in the corner?" I said, yeah, it's right there. "Is that where you put the ice? Do you see the guy sitting next to the deep freezer over there in the corner?" I said, yeah. He said, "Well, what he does is he takes the plastic bags, fills them full of water, places them in the deep freezer. When they're frozen, he reaches into the deep freezer, pulls them out, puts the ice in the cooler, and fills another bag, and he puts it into the deep freezer. Therefore, we have the ice maker." The ice maker that's what they contracted for. They contracted for an ice maker. Now, when we think of an ice maker, what do we think of? We think of what we see in a hotel or a restaurant where there's lots of ice coming out, there's plenty of ice. Needless to say, the logistics officer was not happy, but at the same time, the contractor had fulfilled his requirement as he had stated it on his paperwork. So we want to make sure that we have planning, we plan requirements. We're also clear in those requirements so that we get what we want when we need it. Now tonight, if you'd like a copy of the slides, you can get a copy of the slides. If you have a QR code reader, you can flash that. Plus I have your email addresses, and I'll send you out a way to get the slides if you'd like those slides. And you really can't see that. And if you go to watch this tomorrow, if you go there and just subscribe, it helps us get YouTube ranking, get up there, and more people watch it, and we can share this information, because by you being in this room, you've separated yourself from a lot of folks. You're a supply leader. And Brian and I were talking earlier that, when you go into a room and you achieve cost savings, the other way to look at it, the flip side, is you've generated additional profit for your organization. Most people, "Well, I just saved $1 million. "Hey boss, I just saved $1 million. You're going to say, "Congratulations, great." Now what if you go in and you say, "Hey boss, I just generated you $1 million extra profit"? He's going to say, "What'd you make? Tell me about that." Same thing. Because when we save 2.5% cost savings, is the same as generating the same profit of 10% worth of sales. And it really just talks about being simple, being clear, and focused, and getting the job done. What I did in the Marine Corps is, over the 20 years, I went through, they sent me to school to get smart, got a bachelor's degree, they made me an officer. Then I went through, got my master's degree in global operations from the University of Phoenix. Then I was still on a base job and knew I was going to the fleet and wouldn't have time, so I went ahead and pursued a doctorate in international business with a specialty in supply chain management. And the result of that doctorate was this book here, Supply Chain Management by the Marine Corps in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now you can get this book for the next 5 days on Amazon for free. You just go there, download the book, and you've got a copy of it for you. We scheduled that promotion just in time for this, so you wouldn't have to pay $1 to get the book. You just go out there, download the book, and you can read it and take the lessons we talk about tonight and apply those to your business. Because when I wrote this, it wasn't just documenting military history. Part of going through that process is drawing the conclusions and the correlation between how the military does business and how business does business, and seeing the relationships. And that what we end up finding and what we discover is that the fundamentals are the fundamentals no matter where you are and what you do. If you understand the fundamentals, you can execute the supply chain. Does that make sense? Hoorah! 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 So we'll find out, how to go through the Marine Corps did their job and what they did to be successful. And when they did supply chain management, they were focused on maneuver warfare. Maneuver warfare is focused on speed and moving faster than the enemy. When we're in business, who are we moving faster than? The competition, right? We make decisions faster than the competition, then we will win in business and be more profitable. Same concept applies when we have a military operation. You want to move faster than the enemy. Make decisions faster than the enemy, and we do that with information and good planning. Good planning and information. Okay. And what they found when they did this is they moved 1.2 million tons worth of material over 8,000 miles a day using 2,000 trucks. How were they able to do this? Is they understood the fundamentals with good training. And here's a picture of all the different things that were happening to make sure that operation was successful. Had helicopters, we had boxes of trailers, these are LCACs, ships moving, and Marines, and soldiers, and sailors, and airmen all on the ground, moving forward. Very good. Well, I appreciate it. And as I mentioned before, we are in an industry and a career field that is changing. That business is finally recognizing as a profit center of a company or an organization. Even if you're in government, how well you spend your money determines what you can and cannot do. The companies that are still in business today after this recent economic recessions are the ones that understood supply chain management and did it well. The Walmarts and the Toyotas of the world. Now, a little bit about my background. I want to put together some pictures, kind of give you my background. This is me back in 1989 when I entered the Marine Corps. From there, I was selected to be a radio technician, and I was in Okinawa. That's me and my brother actually in Okinawa. We were both in the Marine Corps at the exact same time. And then I was an embassy guard when I met Colin Powell for a photo op. He said, smile, and I smiled and moved on. That's the extent of my relationship with Colin Powell, but it's a nice picture. From there, I was accepted into an officer program and went to the University of Florida, and it was where I met my wife, and we got married and had 3 beautiful children out here. And then I was a lieutenant. That's me in Croatia. I got a good cigar. And this is us before my last deployment, where we went into the Red Sea, did a lot of work off the east coast of Africa, went into Kuwait. That's about as far as I went in, came back out, and we continued to do our work on the east coast of Africa. And most of us know about it now because of the pirate situation, but that's what we were doing back then. And then we retired, and we have our 3 children. They was recently in a wedding. Is anybody curious at all about who Jack Quinn is? Yes. Jack is the middle name of that little guy right there. Quinn is the middle name of that guy right there. And the middle name of my daughter is Sophia, JQS, Jack Quinn Solutions. Who came up with that idea? That beautiful woman right there. It was not me. I am not that smart. But she came up with that idea. So which we've been in business since 2009, continuing to grow our business by training procurement professionals and becoming something more than what we are perceived to be today. And the way we do that is through training and be more confident than our competition. As you see here, the books, you can get these books on Amazon, all 3 of them. If you're wondering when and how you're going to prepare for the CPSM certification, there's a book there that tells you exactly how we prepare students. Not everything's in there, but most everything. Most everything's in there. Okay, but tonight we're going to talk about is supply chain management by the Marine Corps in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and draw the correlations between how they did business in an operation and how we need to do business, or how we do business today. And what we'll find is that there's fundamentals no matter what, and when you master the fundamentals, you can do anything well, just like in football. At the block and tackle of football, if you can't block and tackle, how's that quarterback going to throw the football pass, right? That make sense? Okay. I mentioned before, it was a concept of maneuver warfare, move fast, move faster than the enemy, and in business we move faster than the competition. And by moving faster than them, being able to make better decisions than them, we were able to stay ahead and stay profitable when they may not be. And we do that by solid planning, good training, and making decisions with leadership. So people are what made the difference. There are a lot of problems, and we're going to talk about those problems. Okay, we're going to kind of go into those problems and really kind of hammer them out so we can talk about them and understand what happened and what we can do to avoid those issues. But at the end of the day, when things still didn't work quite in accordance with the plan, people made the difference. And you have pictures of Marines up here, and then a picture of some professionals here. You know, these folks were on the ground. This middle guy right here passed away in Afghanistan. He was a staff sergeant in 2012. He was one of those people. He made it happen. And the reason I brought him in this presentation was to honor him in his memory, because he did a good job. Planning is the key. Understanding good planning. And when we did this dissertation and studied this, what we discovered was Marine Corps is set up in 3 different organizations. You have the East Coast Marine Corps, the West Coast Marine Corps, and then you have Okinawa. Well, the West Coast was going to lead the operation. So the East Coast went to the West Coast to plan with them and to hammer out the plan. And a part of that plan was that at a certain point in the operation, the East Coast was going to displace or move to another location on the battlefield. That was the plan when this particular planner that we interviewed, that's when he left the West Coast and came back to the East Coast. That's what he thought was going to happen. So he briefed the East Coast. He briefed the East Coast and said, you know, at a certain point in the operation, we're going to displace and move. The East Coast said, that's great, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to be operationally focused, not tactically focused, and we're going to support the entire theater. It would make sense that if there's a change in the plan, we should communicate the change, correct? That did not happen. Okay, so when they started the operation, it got to a certain phase, the West Coast commanders thought that they were going to displace, and when they gave the order, they didn't move. So immediately, the assets they thought they had and they were going to be able to use to support the forces on the ground weren't there. So they were planning for the ability to move 25 to 50,000 gallons of fuel at a time, and really what they had, the units had 15,000 gallons of capability to move. So that put a huge strain on the assets on the ground. Now, think about this in business. How many times does your executive team put together a plan, and they have a marketing plan where they're going to capture more market share, they're going to increase sales, they're going to bring in a new product, and then they tell you about it? Anybody experience that? How do you feel about that? Say again?
That never happens.
That never happens. It never happens. Well, being part of the planning process is what's imperative. And when you go through CPSM certification training, not only do we talk about the planning process itself, but we also talk about how to develop that leadership so that I can be effective in part of the planning. Be effective in part of the planning. Now, the results of this inability, or this planning, the plan, whenever we do a plan, we hit print, what happens? Plan changes, right? Plan changes. So the plan changed, and the result of this plan was that there were people on the battlefield that requested 25,000 gallons of fuel before they were going into a town to accomplish a mission. And they couldn't get it. The assets weren't available. And they had tanks that they were going to use in support of this particular operation. Now, tanks operate on gallons per mile, not miles per gallon. And they had a request for 25,000 gallons of fuel, and they didn't get it. What ended up happening was a helicopter flew in with 3,500 gallons of fuel, and they prioritized and they put the fuel where it needed to go, and they would continue to move forward in the mission. Now, is that similar to what you all would do? You only have a limited number of assets. You become aware of it. What do? You prioritize, you make a decision, and you move forward. You continue to execute. All the systems in the world are not going to replace that decision-making ability of you all in this room right here, right now. Does that make sense? Okay. But it's also something that happens in industry every day. A couple of years, not only 2010, but also 2011, what happens in Greenland? Volcano goes up. What happens when that volcano erupts? Shuts down the air corridor between Europe and the United States. Okay? The tsunami in Japan affected a lot of parts coming out of Japan. A lot of parts coming out of Japan. And people that had a plan, this particular article talked about Hewlett Packard and what he started doing as soon as he heard about it. He started making decisions and taking action. And most recently, UPS. Anybody with UPS? Yeah. UPS had a little bit of a hiccup this past Christmas season where they had a surge in purchasing and they were not able to meet that Christmas on-time delivery that they thought they had. But they continued to move forward and they were able to do this. But there was an assumption made in somebody's planning that wasn't necessarily validated, and when it wasn't turned out to be true, he had to adjust the plan. Does that make sense? Okay. And when we do a plan, we go through a planning process. How do we know the plan's going to work? what do we put in place to make sure that the plan is actually going to be executed and monitor the results of that planning throughout the planning execution? Okay. What do we do? First, we plan. It's an essential part of strategic sourcing, but then we put in metrics. Right? How many of us use metrics on a regular basis? How many of us that use metrics, the organization where you are, everyone understands those metrics the same way? Okay.
And likes them.
Say again?
And likes them.
It likes them. And part of coming up with metrics, when we sit down in our planning and we determine what success is going to be, we go through a planning process. Right? When we go through a planning process, we come up with a vision, a mission, all the goals we're going to develop so we can show we're successful. The way we know we're successful is we have good metrics. We're going to achieve this much cost savings or this much profit generation. We're going to have a level of readiness, order fill rate, delivery on time, delivery, those types of things are what we're measuring. Fair? Okay. When they were going through the operation, there were three metrics people were looking at. Readiness, which is what the commander on the ground is looking at. This is the person who's making the decision on what assets he has available in order to conduct a mission. So that's his focus. Call him the ultimate customer, the end customer is the commander. He's looking at readiness. Other people throughout the supply chain are looking at fill rate and order ship time. Order ship time was about 2 to 5 weeks, and the fill rate was about 10%. 10%. Now, what was going on during this time? We're going to talk about information technology in a few, and that'll kind of illustrate more what really happened. What was going on is Marines were submitting requests for stuff. Those requests were going into the system, but the system did not have the ability to give them back feedback to say your stuff is on order and where it is in the supply chain. So what did they do? They ordered it again. Yeah, they ordered it again. So when we look at this fill rate of 10%, we got to kind of understand the context of what that number means. There was a lot of ordering, reordering, ordering again, because they didn't know. They didn't know where their stuff was. They didn't know if they got if it was actually received, and they were doing stuff. They were moving forward. Okay, so you want to make sure they have that. Now we look at order ship time, 2 to 5 weeks. Where do you think the clock started, and where do you think it stopped? It started when they placed the order, and they received it on the other end. Now these are folks in DLA, stateside, and they're all about supporting the people overseas. So whatever they've got to do, that's their mentality, no doubt. Whatever it takes, we're going to get it done. So they receive an order, and they'll do what it takes to fill that order within 2 to 5 weeks based on what the supply chain had. Now when do you think the clock stopped? It stopped at the port of debarkation going overseas, which was Norfolk. Now what's the rest of that story? Right? It's got to go from Norfolk all the way over to Kuwait, where it gets loaded off the ship, and from there it gets loaded off the ship, and then it moves forward if they know what's inside the container. Now this was a very interesting part of this, is that there were containers coming off the ships. They say, what's in that container? I don't know. The manifest wasn't on the container, or they didn't have it readily available, so they said, so put it over there. Now you got all this material coming in, so that pile over there got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to where it was just a pile of Iron Mountain just moving forward. And I know this to be true because in 2007, when I was in Albany, Georgia, which is the logistics base for the Marine Corps, they were bringing these Connex boxes back, opening them up to inventory them to find out what was in there. Because they didn't know. Does that ever happen to you? Does it ever happen to you when, no? Not that bad, maybe not, but where you have inventory coming in, but nobody knows where it came from, where it was ordered, or where it might be inside the warehouse? It just comes in, it gets put on a shelf, but nobody knows it's there.
And the 2 to 5 weeks,
Say again?
the order ship from the 5 weeks was, you said that when it was dropped off at the
Norfolk, Virginia, which is a it's a naval base in Virginia where they then put it on the ship or a plane and they ship it into the Okay. So that was very interesting.
So what was the real time for you to get it?
Well, it didn't. If they didn't know what was in the container, they set it to the side, so they don't know when it was actually filled.
But how can they ship something without a manifest?
They were using military channels, so if it shows up on the truck, they put it off the truck, they put it on the ship, and they ship it. There's no customs or borders now. They say, hey, it's got to go. Somewhere there was a list of what was in that Connex box. Somewhere.
Somewhere.
Okay. Yes, sir.
One of the issues that caused the loss of data was the transfer from the military system in Norfolk to Impress Shipping. So the military was calling up a shipping line and saying, we're going to take over a couple of your container ships to get this stuff either to Saudi Arabia for stuff going in through Jordan or to Kuwait. So when it went into the commercial system, all of the information went to the commercial system, and there was no link to get the information from the commercial system back to the military in Kuwait. It came from the commercial system back to the military in Norfolk, who then had to get the data back over to Kuwait to try to match up data with the shipment and hope you got the data matched to the right ship and the right container. This was early on. You got fixed fairly quickly, but that was one of the issues, was military to commercial to military.
The systems didn't communicate.
Say again?
The systems didn't communicate.
We're going to talk about that. Because the Marine Corps was actually going through a transformation at that exact time where they were on two different systems. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay? So we had misaligned metrics because there was a lack of understanding of what they all meant and how they all contributed to the end result, which was readiness. How did that work? So a logistics commander or a supply officer is saying, hey, I got my fill rate. My order ship time is on time. It's moving. I'm good. Saying fill rate. Okay, I filled mine and it went. I did what I was supposed to do. But then the commander's like, where's my stuff? Okay, so there was just, not that people were doing things wrong, they just had a different perspective. So when we develop metrics for a plan, we want to make sure everybody understands the plan and understands the metrics and the impact of those metrics. So when we see a fill rate of 10%, what does that really mean to readiness? What does that really mean to readiness? Okay, we want to understand that. Okay, so the result of this, according to General Christensen in his testimony to Congress, was there's a huge backlog of supply in the system, throughout the system. There were a lot of wasted funds on Connex boxes or containers that were just set aside, and they're paying the rent on those or demurrage. They're just waiting. It's just money just getting spent. That's one of the missions of Albany at that time. I was saying in 2007, it's like we got to stop paying rent for these things. They could have bought them outright for as much money as they paid the rent on them. So there's a lot of money, wasted fund there. $1.2 billion in discrepancies between what was ordered and what was received. What was ordered and what was received. Now, if the supply leader, you all in your room, could find this $1.2 billion, what does that mean? Profit to the company. Outstanding. Very good. Okay. And so, come back to here. How do they maintain 95% readiness? How did the commander maintain that ability to continue to serve the mission? We call it cannibalization. Okay. Now, the military has a whole order on what you're not supposed to do and why you're not supposed to cannibalize vehicles. But what cannibalization is just like it sounds. They're taking parts off of good vehicles or vehicles that are kind of broke. They're taking those good parts and putting them on vehicles that are broken, but getting them up and running. So that's how they continue to maintain that readiness. We had people making decisions, taking leadership, and getting things done. They said, got it, supply chain is broke. They continue to move forward. And just a side note, had an Amtrak supply officer. Amtrak are those vehicles you see on the Marine commercials that come up out of the water, and they got these tracks on the side. He anticipated the supply chain to fail, so he placed his order before he ever left the States for replacement tracks. And 6 months later, he received it because he placed that order before he ever left the States. So he anticipated failure, took action, and continued to move forward. Okay, in his planning. Okay. And what was really interesting, stockpile of excess supplies, and with this, they were going around the supply system, is they basically created their own, what I call an underground supply system. There was, anybody watch MASH? Remember that old series MASH? What did you hear Radar and Klinger doing all the time? What were they doing? They were making deals for a case of scotch, right? That was one of the, hey, I got a case of scotch. I gotta get that. Not that there was scotch on the battlefield, but they were making deals. Like, I got tires, you got fuel, I'll trade you my tires for your fuel. Or stuff like that. That's what they were doing. They were making things happen. The Marines would grab their Lance Corporal, grab a vehicle, and they would drive to the next unit and say, what do you got? They'd find out what they have, say, okay, I got this, what do you need? Let's make a trade, and they'd move on, and they continue to move forward, okay? This is really good.
Actually, Randy, if I may
Yes.
add to that, that's also common. Anybody here in the airline industry or something that's actually, yeah. On the airline industry, that's very common. There's something called the AOG desk, and these are people that work for the airlines that are responsible for getting the parts that the aircraft are missing when the airplane is grounded because they need to do something. All right, AOG is responsible to get those parts. Sometimes, you know what they do, right? The guy from Delta goes to the guy from American, kind of borrow that, and he borrows it, and then later on, he returns it. But sometimes when you're in dire need, you lose that sort of stuff, and not only happens in the military, this is a good example in the private sector where it happens.
And that's exactly the point. You see, we're talking about a military example, but they apply to what we do every day. What we do every day is making decisions, taking action, and moving forward. Taking action, and moving forward, okay? The point of talking about metrics is by the lack or misaligned of metrics is there was a sense of uncertainty on the battlefield. And when there's uncertainty, people take action to get certainty, correct? That's what they do when they start stockpiling, they start ordering again. They're doing the things that they have to do to feel certain that they know what's going to happen in the future, and they take action. So by having well-defined metrics that are explained and people understand, their uncertainty goes down and they're able to make better decisions. If they can see the supply chain and know exactly where the material is, then they can also make better decisions. How are they able to see what was going on? The information technology that we were talking about earlier. What was going on in the Marine Corps at that exact time was the Marine Corps was going through a transition off a system called Atlas, which was 30 plus years old. It was an old COBOL system. Anybody use COBOL? You use it still?
No, used to.
You use COBOL? Years ago? Okay. COBOL system, COBOL technology, and they were transitioning to a system that was PeopleSoft based. Okay, the new system was more real time. It kind of reconciled itself every day automatically. That's what was going on. With the old system, you had to download your data onto a disk, take it over to a computer, upload it into the computer, send that file via some type of electronic means, either email or something, to be received on the other side. The other side would receive it. They would load it up. They would reconcile it if you processed it correctly. They would receive those orders and they would push those orders out. If those were not uploaded correctly or there were any mistakes in the order, they would be rejected. You would get an error file that would come back to you the next day. Okay, this is 24 hours, it come back to you, you receive your errors. Then you have to reconcile those errors, fix them, put them back in the system, and run them up. That's the old system, that's what they were doing. So the Marine Corps was in the middle of this transition. So what happened was, all the way up to the point of actually crossing the line of departure or actually going into the operation, they tried to make it work. They said, what we'll do is keep the second Marine Division on the new system and the 1st Marine Division on the old system, because they split. They did one test with one unit, another test with another unit, and then the operation happened. The point for this action is that how many of us have implemented systems, have added SAP or Oracle or something like that? When we start to implement new systems, what do the people want to do? Use the old system. They don't want to change. They don't want to change. So the point with this, again, with this area is that when you go through the process of developing a system, and when you go through CPSM certification, we teach you that process, the system development lifecycle, and talk about how do you develop a system and implement a system. So when you go through that process, when you get to that final point of turning on the new system, you have to turn the other one off. You have to turn the other one off. Or else you get caught in a situation like this where people just don't see what's going on. They say, I can't work with that new system, I'm just going to go to the old system, right? Okay. Does this happen in industry? Does this happen in your world? It does. It happened to BMW. They were going through a transition to software, and the result was that the parts were not being shipped, and that they were feeling that on the customer service side. They were feeling it on the customer service side, and you have a company like BMW, they're high-end, right? Their customers, do they want to wait? Most likely not. So they were going through a supply chain system where they were changing, and it caused a delay in parts being delivered. Okay, so the point again is that when we go to a new solution, we want to chop off, say, okay, the old system, keep it for record-keeping purposes, but get everybody on the new system as soon as possible. Does that make sense? Can I get a new raw? Can I get a new raw? All right, good to go. Technology is not a solution. Okay, technology is a tool. Technology is a tool. You put data into the tool, you get data, you process that data, you make decisions based on the data inside the tool. The people are the solution. People are the ones that read the data and make it work, and make decisions based on that data. Okay? And when technology fails, people have to leave. Okay? So would we say that Operation Iraqi Freedom was a success for the U.S. military? It was. It was. Without a doubt, we can all say that it was a success. The reason it was a success was because of people. It had leadership on the ground, making decisions and moving forward. When there was no easy answers, they got creative and made decisions. They had a very focused way of getting things done. So my mission is this. Now, some would say that their mission was to get to Iraq and make things happen. I would offer to you and those that have been in service, we don't fight for the political reason, we fight for each other. And their mission was to make sure they didn't fail their brother Marines out there. So that's what they were doing. Okay? That was their focus. Like, I'm not going to let him down. I'm not going to let her down. They're going to do what they have to do to be successful. And then they had training. Their training was uniform and fundamental, grounded in the fundamentals. Grounded in the fundamentals so that when somebody had a thought, they had an understanding of terminology, they all understood the same thing, the same way, they were able to communicate faster, make decisions faster, and move forward in the supply chain. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. So, anybody here CPSM certified? Who's CPSM certified? Okay, very good. I'd like to talk about a couple myths with CPSM certification, just to make sure, like, why would I get certified? Supply chain management certification is not a requirement for the job. So people say, I don't need to do this, it's not a requirement. It is a requirement if you're a professional and you're trying to achieve the highest levels. Whether you do CPSM certification or APEX certification or any one of the different certifications out there, what you're doing is you're testing yourself to achieve a standard. To achieve a standard. And if you're a supply leader and if you're in this room, you want to go for that standard. You want to go for whatever that standard may be. Will it get me a job? We did an informal survey of the career builder, went in there and plugged in certification, up popped 1,000 jobs of looking for certification, then put in CPSM, it's about 65, 70, then I put in CPM, about 200. In other words, people haven't made that transition yet from CPM to CPSM, but they're still looking for that certification. They're still looking for that certification. Okay. Is it worthwhile? Is it worth my spending the time to do this? We would say yes, but let's look at the numbers. The numbers according to the ISM salary survey every year for the last 3 years, we've been tracking it. Those that are CPSM certified make 8 to 10% more than those that are not certified. Now, does that mean? We would hope. What it means is that you've tested yourself on the knowledge that's going to give you the skills to make better decisions to earn that raise. Just going to earn that raise. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. Supply chain management. Oh, I don't want to miss this one. Businesses don't spend any money on supply chain training. Is that true? How many of us have a budget for training? Okay. Let's think about the other side. Sales. Your opposition, your nemesis is the salesperson, right? Right? How much do they spend on training? Billions. $20 billion a year spent on sales training. Most new salespeople get 20 days of training initially, and then 10 days a year every year after that to keep them sharp. One company spent $5.62 million in sales training alone. So whether your company has a budget or not, at a minimum, we want to at least be on an equal footing with the opposition, right? Is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile? I would say yes. Okay. Supply chain managers are not a priority. Supply chain management is not a priority for executives. That's changing. I would offer that as changing. They're starting to understand the value of that, and they're asking those questions. Okay? People have been doing supply for 20 plus years, and there's a lot of folks in this room that have been doing supply for a long, long time. And some, not those in this room, some would come to me and say, Randy, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need to learn anything else. Professionals are in a constant state of learning. They are always learning. They want to stay sharp. They want to stay sharp. Even those people that have karate with a black belt or any type of martial arts have a black belt, what are they doing every day? They're practicing. They're practicing. They're drilling the fundamentals. Drilling the fundamentals. When you go championship football teams, they spend a lot of time throwing those footballs, making those plays. What else are they doing? Block and tackle. Block and tackle. Supply chain management is the block and tackle of business. You have to do it well. You have to do it well. You have to master it. Okay. Certification costs too much. From there I say, how much is too much? How much is too much? How much is too much if you're going to earn a raise with that investment? How much is too much if it's going to save your company $20,000, which is what happened with one of our students this year. He was in Tennessee. He was with a fitness company, and based on what he was learning, wasn't certified yet, what he was learning to get certified, he negotiated a $20,000 rebate for his company. That's not uncommon for folks to come through our training. It's them at all, by all means, because they're just preparing to come to the training. It's even before they show up for the training. So the certification is what does it. We had another person, she was with Harley Davidson. She saved an additional 15% on a $15 million deal based on what she was learning during the certification process. So is it worthwhile? Is it a worthwhile investment? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you need a degree? ISM has changed the requirements for CPSM certification. If you have a bachelor's degree and 3 years of supply chain management experience, not of a clerical nature, you can take the CPSM certification. If you do not have a degree, you need 5 years of supply management experience, not of a clerical nature, in order to take the CPSM certification. So you do not need a degree in order to qualify for this certification. Does that make sense? Which is very good. They had the CSM for a while. It was the exact same material. It was the exact same test. They just had CSM and CPSM. They dropped the CSM and they just changed the requirements for CPSM so that anybody that has supply chain management experience and wants to get certified, they can get certified. Okay. So do y'all find this valuable?
Yes.
Was this worthwhile?
Yes.
Okay, what I'd like to share with you is how I can help you, how our company can help you get CPSM certification so that you can bring this training to your company so you have a solid foundation in the fundamentals. And I would offer, based on what we talked about with the Marine Corps, having a solid foundation in the fundamentals allows you to be agile, be quick, be faster than the competition. Be faster than the competition. So who is our course for? It's for the person that wants to get CPSM certification. You don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time. You want to get it done. You want more financial security. Because whether you get a raise or not, when it comes to you being measured against the other person, the person with the certification is more likely to keep their job than somebody who's not. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you understand the value of focused study in an immersion environment, when you go through the boot camp, you get a very focused study and you get it done. You get it done. Okay? If you can follow a process. Our system is set up as a process that you can follow and implement again and again on each exam. Brian went through our course last year. Brian, if you don't mind sharing
Sure.
what you experienced.
Well, it's interesting. A coworker of mine had ordered the study materials for the ISM credential and the CPSM exam. And sitting in her office, I saw this pile of books. And I'm looking at this, and we all work tons of hours a week. How am I going to fit this amount of studying and this amount of credentialing into my time while I'm working? Came across your materials were sent to me, I guess through ISM, I'm not quite sure how I got it. I read about the boot camp. And I have to be honest with you, you're taking in quite a lot of material and you want to compress it into this boot camp, which for me was an excellent experience. It was, I think we did 3 days, 3.5 days.
3 days.
Come with a good attitude, wear comfortable clothes, open your mind up. Randy, if you want to call me Randy, gave us the techniques that ISM is looking for you to have to pass these tests. And there are techniques. I studied, I took the 3 tests, I think it was about 40 days after the class. I passed them. They weren't easy, but it was well worth taking the class. And I encourage anybody who wants to improve their career and do better and to great learning experience to do it. It was very much worth the time and money.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And there's also this program who it's not for. Okay, it's not for somebody who doesn't have 3 to 5 years supply chain management experience. That's just a requirement for the certification. No reason to go through the process and get stressed out if you can't get the certification on the back side of that. Okay, if you're not willing to do the work required to get the results, you have a commitment. You got to be focused on what it takes to improve your life and make your life absolutely better. Okay, and if your schedule will not let you take the test 30 days after the exam. So if you're going to go through, we're going to finish on March 14th. So 30 days after that is when, within that 30 days, you're expected to take all 3 exams and pass. And I'll tell you, those that take the exams immediately after the boot camp are the ones that are most successful. Okay. When you register for CPSM training, what do you get? You get a structured process. We tell you exactly what to do. As Brian shared, you know exactly what to do, when to do it. You get your diagnostic test, so you'll know which tasks you need to focus in on, because as we talked about in the beginning, everyone has a different set of experiences. So you take your diagnostic test. Based on those results, you'll send us those your results. We'll put together a personalized study plan for you based on that diagnostic test so that you know exactly what to do. In other words, John's scores are not going to be the same as Brian's, so he's going to get a different personalized study plan all the way around. So we do that for every candidate, okay? We have an interactive instruction. What brings this material to life is the course itself. We spend 3 days focused on the task with the most questions on the exam so that you're going to pass the first time. What makes that possible is the interaction and the discussion. I can hand you the books, give you the slides, and you can study them all you want, okay? And you will be successful, I have no doubt. If you're in this room, you're a successful person, you will be successful. What brings it to life is when we have the discussions. Brian, would you offer that that's really what made that boot camp?
It reinforces the information you're seeing, because sometimes you're taking in so much information, you don't know really, by people talking about their personal experience in the business world, puts it all together for you. Yeah, absolutely. Very.
When you register, you're going to have a one-on-one coaching session with me. I'm going to talk to you about your plan and what you need to be successful, as well as we're going to assign a certification coach with you who's going to walk through the entire process with you from the moment you join our organization until you're certified. They talk to you, they call you, answer any questions you have. You can call them up and say, hey, this is my issue, my concern. They answer the phone and they talk to you, okay? And what's really cool, what I love about the entire boot camp process is the exam strategies. We tell you exactly what to do in the exam so you know exactly what to do from the moment you walk in the door at the Pearson VUE Testing Center till the moment you're done. You see a question, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll know exactly what to do, okay? 3-day course, and most importantly, we guarantee that you'll pass. If you're not successful on the certification exam, we will pay the re-exam fees for you for up to 3 re-exams. Up to 3 re-exams. So if you're having a bad day, for whatever reason, you go and take the test, you're not successful, don't sweat it, we got you covered, we're going to pay those re-exam fees for you. You're investing in a result, you're not investing in training, and we're going to make sure you get that result. We're going to make sure you get that result, okay? We have online recording of previous sessions, okay? So you can go ahead and start tomorrow, get into your session, start to watch the videos of previous sessions so you can start to learn the information, which is really good, okay? And you get to work with us. This is what we've been doing for the last 3 years, is training folks to pass the CPSM certification. That's all we do. That's all we do. So we know the tips and tricks to make you get through the exam and be successful. Be successful. Less than 10% of our students have actually asked us to pay the re-exam fees. Okay? And we say it that way because you say, well, what's our pass rate? It's like, well, people come through the course and we never hear from them. Okay? Whether they took the test or not, all we can really judge is people that called us up and said, hey, Randy, I need to take the exam again. And that's less than 10% of our students have done that. So what do you get today? When you sign up for the CPSM certification boot camp today, starts next week. We're going to get you started. We're going to get your diagnostic test ordered. We're going to set you up with a coaching call with me. We're going to go through your session and make sure you're ready to go. Okay. What bonuses do you get? When you register, you also get to go to the ISM Supply Management Conference on March 11th. It's included as part of your tuition today. So if you register today, you get that included as well. Okay. Your guarantee is going to be extended by 30 days. So you have 60 days after the course to actually pass the tests. Give you a little bit more breathing room if you need it. If schedule, we have people come in, their schedule just doesn't work out, so we just give them a little bit extra time. So you get those extra 30 days today. And you get an online bonus course from my wife, who's a certified professional stress manager. She's a yoga instructor. She's very good. She's had 10 years experience. And what she did is she put together a class for me in the very beginning, and we recorded it, where she talks to people about yoga, how to breathe, how to stretch, how to manage your anxiety while you're preparing for the test and also during the exam as well. So the price, someone asked about the price. If you go online, you'll find it for $26.97. Most people register for the early bird at $19.97. But because you're an ISM Florida member, you get it for $14.97. $14.97. You won't find that price or that guarantee anywhere else. Okay? How much is your time worth? Think about over the next 6 months, if you commit to doing this and you still don't get it done. You join our program, you're going to get it done in the next 4 months. No doubt, you're going to get it done in the next 4 months. How much will your financial situation improve by having the certification and using those techniques to earn that raise and move forward? Okay? And you're going to work with us, a team focused on getting people through the certification. Okay? What's the guarantee? We actually have 2 guarantees. You go through our course. If on day 1 you're not absolutely knocked out saying you love this course, let me know. Turn in your materials. We'll refund your money. We'll refund your money. If when you pass the test or when you leave the course, you go to take the test, you're not successful, we will pay the re-exam fees. will pay the re-exam fees. So the risk is minimal. The risk is absolutely minimal. That's why I appreciate George allowing us the opportunity to come let you know about our program and how it can help you, how it can be successful for you. So what I'd like you to do is register now. I have sign-up forms here. And on the back of the flyer is a credit card form. If you're not comfortable giving your credit card information, just put your name and number on it. We'll contact you tomorrow to get the credit card information. But what's really cool is that for the first 7 people, if you register, hand me your form with your name on it, or write down your name, you're going to get the study guides included in your package. Okay, so that's even, you're going to get, that's a $100 value as well, study guides. For the first 7 people, just come down, give me your name, your number, put your credit card information in there. If you're comfortable doing that, if you're not comfortable with it, just let us know. I'll write down your number. You'll get credit for turning in a form, and we'll contact you tomorrow to get the payment. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Yes, ma'am.
I already signed up with it, like you're saying, 60 days and the,
Yes.
and the symposium.
Yes. 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 As part of our agreement with ISM South Florida, for everybody that goes through the course, we give a commission to your unit, to your organization for every sale that we get. For every sale that we get. Yes.
What would you say is the difference between this certification and the CSCP certification offered by Apex?
It depends. I'm not a CSCP. My understanding is Apex is more manufacturer focused. But if really, what are your career goals? Look at both certifications and determine which one's best for you. If you ask me, what do you need to do? You need to get certified. Which certification you choose, I'm happy for you. You've met a standard, you've gone beyond, above and beyond what everybody else is doing, which is just sitting back and not doing anything. Okay, so whichever certification you choose, hey, I love you. You're doing awesome. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I really have to ask a professional question that I find intriguing. The process of selecting the vendors and contractors in the Marine Corps, I guess, is pretty much formalized. But I'm just wondering exactly how it works today, and essentially what lessons can one learn then in the selection of vendors in the commercial sector?
Very good question. How do we select vendors in the military in order to provide the services that we need? The way the military and any federal organization that goes through a solicitation process, they follow the Federal Acquisition Regulations. Federal Acquisition Regulations spell out very clearly what the process is based on the dollar amount being spent. If it's $2,500 or less, they can use a purchase card. If it's $100,000 or less, they can use what they call is a I forget the terminology, where they can go buy right then, where a contracting officer can make that purchase without competition. If it's over $100,000, they have to go through a competition process, which includes getting bids from vendors. And that starts out with the solicitation being publicized, then receiving bids. They take those bids, they evaluate those bids, they choose, they make a decision, and based on that decision, they award the contract. That's a whole. Have you ever been involved in the federal acquisition side? It's a lot of fun, isn't it? Oh my gosh, it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, looking at the process of selecting vendors outside the military, for say a company that's in the hospitality or the travel business or manufacturing, what can you advise with respect to looking for specific vendors for specific purposes?
My thought would be make sure you have a defined requirement, and then you publish that requirement and get bids from vendors. Some companies have preferred vendors or certified vendors on their list that they can go ahead and submit those bids to. But one of my experiences was that get 3 quotes minimum, and you get amazing price differences, and you can go with the lowest quote based on the requirement itself. But I would go through a bidding process, identify a clear requirement, go through a bidding process, receive those bids, evaluate those bids, whether it be in committee or by the individual, and then select the best value. Select the best value. That's the way the Marine Corps does it. That's the way the Marine Corps does it. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The one experience in your supply management lifetime that you would say is the greatest learning for you in your lifetime, what would it be?
That's a really great question. And where I learned to love supply chain management, and that's when I made my decision. I was a combat arms Amtrak officer, and then I went to become a supply officer, And within 6 months, I said, this is my life for the rest of my life. And what happened was we had a warehouse, and we were trying to do an inventory, try to capture what we had inside this warehouse. We were training 15,000 students a year, and we had to manage all the equipment for these folks. And I was responsible for that inventory, so we tried to do an inventory in that warehouse. We did that inventory every month for 3 months, and the numbers were still wrong. Still wrong. What we ended up having to do was dump the warehouse, literally empty it completely out, and count everything back in. Now, once I had a solid number, I took that number and I bounced it against the training schedule, which was the number of students that we were going to train. And I was able to project our needs and then become strategic in our purchasing to make sure we had enough stuff to train all the students at all the times. We learned there was a peak and a valley of the training schedule. We could anticipate what that peak was, and when we saw it coming, we could go get more equipment to train them, and when it was over, we could put that equipment away and store it properly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely loved it. That's when I made my decision at that moment to become a supply chain manager for the rest of my life, a supply leader. Any other questions? I will be here all night to answer anybody's questions until the last person's here. If you want to go ahead and register, just fill out a form, bring it to me. I'll start putting numbers on it. When we're out of 7, we hit our 7, we got our bonuses. They're all taken up. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you soon.